Hey free-to-play gang, welcome back to yet another tier list. So I know I just touched on a legendary tier list not too long ago, maybe about a couple of months ago, but now that we have an empty period of time, I think it's just the best time for me to just churn out all of these tier lists that I'm currently lacking a little bit. So there are still a couple that I really want to do, but it really depends on whether we have enough time or not. So for today, I'm going to talk about the legendary tier list that I think a lot of you guys might be excited to know about, and yes, I will be shifting some of the espers around that I kind of regretted in the previous video. So some of these espers that require some changes, right? Number 1, Ashley, number 2, Ollie as well. And of course, we do have some new additions as well, so I just want to talk about everything. Now as always, we have 5 different tiers over here. We have the S, A, B, C, and D. So S tier, as always, is just a god tier. Every single one of these espers are incredibly strong, incredibly meta, have a lot of users in many different content, and just overpower every single other esper in every single other tier. As for tier A, they are still really strong espers, it's just that they have far fewer users than those espers in the S tier, but they are still generally really viable in a lot of different content. And for the B tier espers, they are just average espers, they still are good, they just lack a plethora of users. And as for C tier, they are rather niche, they have like 1 or 2 users and that's about it. And then D tier are espers that I do not recommend you to build at all. So we have 31 espers, let's start immediately with Biondina. Now I do feel like Biondina has a little bit more use, especially since Dark Starlord came around. So previously, I would rather put her at around niche or B tier, but I think Dark Starlord is still not reason enough to push her a little bit higher, so I think I'm just gonna keep her at somewhere around high B. She is really good right now. So she can be used in both a support role or an offensive role, so you can definitely separate her build according to your PvP loadout and your PvE loadout. Now next is going to be Dona. He is incredibly not useful right now, so you cannot use him to farm Chronos 15 or at least Chronos 16 anymore. Previously you could use him to do that just to fodder farm, and now that he's lacking a lot of use in defensive comps as well due to the plethora of other espers like let's say Gaius, he is no longer relevant anymore. So I'm gonna chuck him at D tier. I do not recommend you to build a Dona. If you have skilled him up, hopefully a rewind event comes around and then you can collect back your skill points. Next is going to be Gabrielle. She is always going to be S tier for me. I think she's really strong, she's really good for a lot of different content. She's also really good in RTA, although she lacks a little bit of endgame PvE use right now. I think most of us endgame players do not really use her in PvE all that much, except for PvP, but she's still really viable for every single content in the game. Now Hyde, he is strictly PvP based, so because this is going to be an overall general tier list, and I'm going to cover both PvE and PvP users, he kind of lacks a little bit in the PvE sense, and therefore I cannot put him anywhere higher, so I think I will either put him at a high B or a low A, but I think as per the previous tier list video, I'm still going to chuck him at B tier, just a high B. Now some people have been asking me to sort the espers according to my own individual rank, so any esper on the left side is going to be a little bit more valuable than the esper towards its right. So for example, Hyde is going to be a little bit more valuable than Biondina. Next we have Jinyu Yao. This is obviously going to be a niche esper. She is viable in some RTA teams. She's also viable in Dark Starlord as well. She's used a lot over there. So because of that, definitely C tier. You don't really use her anywhere else. And then we have Lewis. So now I'm starting to use him a little bit more because he has one of the highest single target damage potential in this game, aside from let's say Ophelia or let's say Gaius when you're attacking a single target. So because of that, I think he still has pretty good use. I am going to actually improve him to A tier. I feel like he has a lot of potential, especially his typing. He has an excellent typing. So he is a really good counter against Hyde right now, and he's also very viable in RTA. Now Liling, yes, he did receive a major nerf recently that reduced his damage across the board, but I feel like in general, his early game and mid game performance is definitely going to go down quite a fair bit. In terms of endgame content, he is still going to perform as he does, so he's still going to be useful in Shadowfire, he's still going to be quite useful in PvP as well. I just feel like he's no longer the S tier esper that he used to be, so I am going to chuck him at A tier, but I think I'm still going to put him slightly above Lewis in this case. Next we have Lucas. I still feel like he's an S tier esper. He has a lot of AP control on his first skill, he has stuns and he has buff strips. So I think he's a really all-rounded support, and he also has one of the highest base speeds in this game. Next up we have Nama. I do feel like he is extremely limited in terms of his use, so he's mostly a PvP esper, which is one big setback. But another major issue is that he requires a lot of setup in order to perform. So the thing is, you either need to have a Lin Xiao or better yet a Raven in order for him to maximize his potential in PvP, and on top of that you need a lot of buffs. So it's also very easy for you to get countered, especially the enemies can find a way to strip away all your buffs, or maybe keep you stun locked, or maybe just keep one of your espers stun locked, and then that's about it, right? So because of that, I think I'm actually going to put him to niche tier. I don't feel like he is an esper that is really worth investing unless you have nothing else worth to invest in. And then we have Raven, so she is probably one of the best buff strippers in this game, probably second to Tricky, I would think. But in terms of viability for all content, I feel like she's more geared towards point war, not so much in other content. She might be useful in Temporal Tower if you want to nuke things early on, but I think in general PvE content, you might want to use Lucas instead of Raven, which means that I would probably put her at a B tier. Now, Sally used to be an S tier Esper for me, but I do feel like she lacks a little bit of use, so right now most people are probably going to be using Sally for weaker point war defensive comps. I don't really think that she's that viable in Holo Battle, and I don't think she's going to be as useful as she were in, let's say, Temporal Tower or the Infinity Tower, because now her main role is just to tank enemy heights, but there are so many ways for you to deal with heights right now, so I think I'm going to actually push her down to probably A tier. Now, Tang Xuan, he requires a shit ton of investment for him to function well, and the thing is he doesn't even function good at all. So the reason why I say that is because his debuff chance is extremely low. He has a 40% chance for a defense break, and on top of that, there is a randomized process for him to even apply debuffs in the first place based on the 3 different gold buffs that he can provide to himself on a random chance. Of course, unless he uses his third skill, right? But the thing is, regardless, he requires so many stats. He requires accuracy, he requires attack, he requires HP, crit rate, crit damage, speed, all kinds of good stuff just for him to function on an average basis. So I still do feel like he's quite mediocre in most cases, and I think he either falls between C or D tier for me, but I think I'm just going to put him at D tier just because I wouldn't recommend any of my audience members to invest into Tang Xuan when there are better Espers out there to invest in instead. Now, Tia is one of the better PvP Espers, that's for sure. So she carries a 25% global speed lead, which is very useful anyway, but her main issue is the cooldown on her third skill with I think a 5 turns cooldown, which is too long to be useful in most PvE content. So I feel like I'm going to have to chuck her at B tier. She is mostly going to be a PvP based Esper, but I think she's slightly more useful than Raven in this sense. Now, next we have Tricky, who is going to be the god of stripping and basically everything else, because he applies Petrify, he applies stuns, he applies a lot of stuff, he extends debuff durations. He is pretty crazy right now, so I think he's definitely going to go into S tier. I think I'm actually going to put him above Gabriel in this case. And then next we have Unas. This is obviously going to be one of the best Espers in the game. He's useful in every single content right now. Like literally every single content. You have your Desolate Lands, you have your Dark Starlord, you have PvP, PvE, everything. He is a king in every single situation. And on top of that, he also has a 35% speed lead for Holo Battles, which is insane. And now we have Cecilia. I am actually going to put her into C tier. She's definitely worth investing, especially if you're crazy about Point War or maybe even RTA. So she's very nichely used over there, but I feel like her main strength lies in Point War. So she's just a heal reviver bot, and that's about it. And then now we have Clara, who is definitely going to go into S tier. I am actually going to put her slightly behind Tricky. I think Tricky is still more important than her in a lot more situations, although the healing and AP push is still really good. So all in all, Clara is a really good Esper, deserving of the S tier. Now we have Sienna. She is not used as much as she were previously, but she's still quite viable in the Desolate Lands, and she's also pretty useful in some PvE cases where you need that AP reduction. But obviously she is still going to be quite useful in PvP, although there are still some other better alternatives, like for example just running a Dahlia, because at the end of the day her AP reduction has a 50% proc rate, which is not a guaranteed chance, so it's not something that you want to rely on all the time. So I am going to chuck her at B tier. She definitely has more users than the C tier Espers, and I'm going to move her slightly higher over here. Now next we have Teva, one of the best single target damage dealers and also an AoE damage dealer if you take out the enemy Esper in one shot. So he does require some setup, like for example the enemy must not have immunity. However, he still packs a punch if you have the Espers who make him work. For example, you have a Raven or you have a Tricky. So I'm definitely going to put him at A tier. He's definitely a very strong DPS Esper. And then now we have Ollie, who is going straight up into S tier. Okay, so the reason why he's so good is because he covers so many grounds. So I was wrong about him in the past. He actually covers a lot more PvE content than I initially thought. So he's really good in Chronos. He's useful in Fafnir as well, but most importantly he's very strong in Infinity Tower. And on top of that, and obviously he's also really good in other content like the Dark Starlord, so I am actually going to shift him up over here. And obviously I should mention that he is a god in RTA and Holo Battles right now. Now next we have Ahmed. He's one of the better healers in the game. He has quite a variety of users as well in different content, mostly in Fafnir, Point War, RTA and Holo Battle, but I don't think he comes as close as Clara in this case, but he is still really good. So because of that, I think I'm going to have to chuck him in the A tier, and I'm going to put him all the way at the top. Oh, I made one mistake. I should move Teva up slightly over here as well. Next, we have Zora, who is slightly weaker than Gaius in some sense. They are not quite the same, but they do function similarly. But because of the stat requirements that Zora needs in order to perform, and her typing as a fighter is not good at all, because of the plethora of Trickies, Gabriels, Heights, etc. in PvP, you might only use her in Shadowfire for most content. So because of that, I think I'm going to have to chuck her in C tier as the niche category. But I am going to move Zora up to the top of C tier. Next we have Ophelia, so I am definitely going to put her into S tier. So previously I put her one tier below, but I do feel like she is definitely deserving of the S tier spot, and I think that she's a really strong Esper right now. So she covers a lot of different content. She's really good in RTA, really good in Holo Battle, an excellent one-hit KO Esper in most cases, right? And on top of PvP, she's also really good in PvE content, so she's really good in Fafnir, really good in APAP, really good in the Temporal Tower as well. So she has a lot of users, so I'm actually going to push her up slightly above Ollie in this case. And then we have JJ, so as long as you have a JJ, you automatically win most of your RTA and Holo Battle runs, and probably all of your point war offenses as well. So I think he's definitely overpowered in that sense, to the point that even though he may not thrive as well in PvE content, I think he's just so useful right now and such a great Esper to have that I have no choice but to put him at S tier. I'm going to put him as a low S tier because he kind of breaks the mold of just being a PvP Esper, but he's just so good right now. Now Gaius is definitely going to go into S tier. I think I might actually push him to one step below Unas. So Gaius is by far the best damage dealer right now in terms of AoE and single target. But please note that you need to max his skills in order for him to be an efficient fodder farmer. Now we have Elliot, who is mostly used to counter JJ teams, and as such he is going to be thrown right into the niche category. But I think he's still not bad, so he's going to take the second position over here. And then now we have Ashley, who is definitely going to go right into S tier. So the amazing thing is that she's so strong in every single content. She's really strong in RTA, really strong in Point War, really strong in all PvE content. I use her in all of my Ritual Miracle runs in Chronos, APEP, and Fafnir. And on top of that, I do use her in Desolate Lands and the Dark Starlord. The only place where I think she falls short is probably Holo Battle because she needs a little bit more allies for her to be efficient. So because of that, I think she's definitely deserving of a very, very, very high tier. And then we have Abigail, who thrives in the Desolate Lands and in RTA and Holo Battle, and she excels in these content. She's incredibly strong over there. So I kind of want to put her in A tier just because of how overpoweringly useful she is in those content as well. So probably somewhere over here. Now next we have Ife, who is probably going to be very useful in either Chronos 16 or the Dark Starlord, and that's basically it. So because of that, I think I'm going to have to chuck her into C tier. She is definitely a very niche Esper right now. Now, I've covered Brewster before. I have mentioned that you need to max his skills in order for him to work, which is a little bit of an investment as well. But the thing is, once you have invested into him, he becomes very viable in a lot of different PvE contents. Not necessarily PvP. I haven't found him to be extremely useful in any of the PvP content in the game. So I think I'm going to have to put him at B tier. He is still quite viable. He's still quite useful. I used him for a very fast Temporal Tower 50 run, but that's about it. And then finally, we have Everett. So he's going to be the first 5-star Shimmer Esper that you can get for free just by farming the Desolate Lands. So right now, he excels a lot in RTA and Holo Battle. And I'm still trying to figure out whether he's useful in Temporal Tower, which we can only discover when Temporal Tower comes around in December. So for right now, I think I'm going to have to chuck him at B tier. He is pretty good in those PvP content, but that's about it. So there you go. This would be the updated 3.1.5 Legendary tier list. That this is obviously just my opinion, right? So let me know down in the comments below if you agree or disagree with any of the placements that I've made over here. Let me know if there are any other changes that you would like to see as well, and obviously take note of the pinned comment down in the comment section below if I do change my mind on any of the Esper placements. But apart from that, I'm quite happy with this. I hope you guys are as well. Anyway, if you enjoyed today's content, don't forget to leave a thumbs up. It really helps the channel, and subscribe for more dislike content. Now with that said, this has been Derry Free to Play, and as always, I will see you in the next video.